Hello, everybody. I'm your host, Miles, and you're tuning in at X Raised, where knowledge meets inspiration in the intricate dance of industry evolution. And this time, why don't we touch on the topic that's reshaping professional development and corporate sustainability worldwide? Recognition of prior learning, or RPL for short. Now, who better to guide us through this interesting subject than the managing director and CEO of ACI Global, an ISO certified international educational services provider? And let me give you folks a refresher. Our guest has over 4 decades of experience helping organizations achieve corporate social responsibility and sustainability, and has been a driving force behind transforming how businesses unlock the full potential of their people. Under his leadership, ACI Global has pioneered programs like Accelerating Continuous Improvement, or ACI, putting competence, capability, and sustainability at the heart of organizational growth. So, let's welcome Ian Erskine. Hi,
Welcome
Ian.
again. Hi, Miles. Lovely to be here again. And yes, and thanks so much for the introduction. And it's interesting I noted in your introduction with you, and we often talk about sustainability.
Yeah.
One of the problems we have in society today is when we talk about the recognition of prior learning of people's prior training and capabilities, no one stops to think, well, hang on a minute, this is a very important part of people's sustainability. That's
Mhm.
part of the sustainability of a person maintaining their career, is that you've got to always look at their knowledge, their capabilities, their skills.
Yes.
And so, yes, when we talk about sustainability, often people just talk about corporate sustainability and environmental sustainability. They
Mhm.
stop and they should think about, at the very start of that process has to be the sustainability of people
Yes.
within the world today.
Well, I'm really happy to see you back on the show, Ian. And as always, it's a pleasure to have you. You've been our regular guest, and every single time you bring something fresh and impactful to the table. So let's jump right into today's topic. As you mentioned, recognition of prior learning. To set the stage, I'd like us to start with the basics. For those who might not be that familiar, can you break down what recognition of prior learning, or RPL, is, and why has it become such a must-have tool for both professionals and organizations?
Well, it's an oh so important measure, because if someone is starting a position,
Mhm.
or in our case, if someone is starting a course, we need to know where they're at. What learning have they achieved? What competencies do they have? What skills do they have? Now, if you don't do what we call a needs analysis or prior learning assessment, you don't know that. So, for argument's sake, if someone just goes into an organisational role without the organisation knowing what that person is bringing on board, that's a recipe for disaster, right?
Yeah.
So obviously that's a common practice where a person will provide their CV, they'll do an interview and so forth. The really switched on people go through that process very, very carefully. They back that up by looking at a person's referees. They will talk to previous people that
Yeah.
were involved in that person's employment. But as a training provider, it's absolutely critical for us with every single course we do, even if the candidate knows what they want to do, they
Uh-huh.
pay for the course, they start, we let them know that we'll always do a needs analysis on them. And quite often we will surprise them in a lot of times that once they finish their recognition of prior learning section of the course, and we then do a needs analysis and map it against what course they've signed up for, we often find that there is actually sections of that course that we can simply recognition their prior learning and move them through at a greater pace to complete that course. Now, if you don't, again, the other flip side of that is if you don't do a prior learning assessment, the person starts the course, you very quickly find that their ability to answer the assessments coming through are limited because their knowledge that they have is not what it should be for them to do that course. And again, from experience, quite often I find that a person has signed up for a course, 2 or 3 assessments into that course, even after the recognition of prior learning, we will go back to them and say, look, this really is not the course for you. We need to
Yeah.
put you in another course.
Mm-hmm.
And quite often there's no difference in price because they've obviously made a mistake, right? But they've paid for their course. We will actually put them into a course better suited, which matches their prior learning.
I see.
That's better for them and it's better for the organisation. And again, this is what we're talking about, people's sustainability,
Yes.
okay?
So recognition of prior learning not only validates what people already know, but it also opens doors for faster growth. It sounds amazing, but let's be honest, Ian, some skeptics might, question its rigor. So how does ACI Global ensure that the RPL process and assessment remains fair, robust, and aligned with international standards?
And this is a very interesting question because quite often a person will provide a CV or a resume, provide a number of referees, and there's this age-old argument where the organisation will say, oh, yes, his referee is just going to pump him up because we're sorry to leave for him to go or so forth. And very rarely will a referee go out of their way to actually mention the good parts or the bad parts of that person's employment history, right? Now, this is where we truly look at recognition of prior learning, and as I said, we tie that into a needs analysis, right?
Mm-hmm.
But throughout the process of the recognition of prior learning, we verify the outcomes of that process. So if a person says to us, they've been very much involved in a quality assurance role, we'll go back to that previous organisation, we'll have a look at their history, right? And it's quite interesting. This has been done before. I've gone back and had a look at their history, and the organisation has been prone to incidents, poor performance, and things like that. And now we've got a person that's got a glowing referee, glowing CV saying how good he was in reference to quality assurance. So what we go back, we step them back through the process and we say, well, okay, what were the positive outcomes you achieved from your past employment years? Okay. Now, there are situations where I really didn't have any positive outcomes. So that's like a red flag to us, right? So we've got to do a verification and try in our very civil and specific way to check. And it can be a situation where we'll send someone out and sit with them whilst they actually undertake a specific task which is required for their new course or required for their new job. We'll want to see how they actually undertake that task.
Yeah.
Right. And then, of course, we have other tools in place where we actually look at their leadership profile, and then we'll put them through a Hogan 360-degree profile where they present to us their reviews that are from some of their stakeholders or from some of their upper managers, right? How did they perform in the upper managers' eyes in reference to their role? That gives us a background, and at all times, we need to do that as a verification of a person's competence. Because again, this goes back to what you were inferring, because quite often people will look at the RPL exercise and say, oh, hum, it's just a matter of a CV, industry experience, you talking to a person and so forth. No, it has to be more than that. You have to put verifiable targets and objectives in place so that you can measure the person coming in within that role or how they're performing within the course. As I said previously, we do have situations where you can actually see where a person is struggling to answer the assessments. So you actually go back, you have a look at their past experience, You talk to them and say, look, we probably just need to just step back a little bit. We'll go back and do another assessment, which may be looking at their leadership style, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we do that, and that then is added to that assessment to enable them to take the next step. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, with all these assessment and verification, Ian, it seems that it's not just about getting a stamp of approval, it's a mark of excellence. And that's exactly what organizations need in today's competitive landscape, because excellence, as we know, it's greatness in business. So, what tangible benefits have candidates and their organizations seen from participating in ACI Global's RPL program? Perhaps you could share a standout success story. I'm sure our audience would love to hear it.
Well, look, many of my past candidates, and look, there's one that clearly does stand out, and a lovely young lady, and she works in a large consulting firm. When
Mm-hmm.
she first came to us, she doubted herself. She'd done lots of training, and she was applying within the company to actually do a big role where they were auditing a transport infrastructure company, right? So we put her through the recognition of prior learning course. We then said, okay, to support that, we think you should do this certain course. We then
Mm-hmm.
put her into that course. And basically, that has now followed on where she's achieved her lead auditor status, which is a 3-year program. And every 3 years, we do a recognition of prior learning again, looking at how they've performed. And then we do a verification audit on them personally. Now, I was involved personally in this, where I actually travelled out to the country. I observed her doing personal audits of people within this transport project, right? And was able to actually provide her input back to her profile, which showed that basically in every aspect of her profile, she was succeeding and was achieving high achiever status. There was one area where there was no fault, but there was certainly opportunities for improvement, and she actually flagged it, where a couple of her internal auditors that were working with her were struggling, and she was struggling how she was going to manage to bring them up with her. So we did a little bit of additional assessment training with her for a lead auditor's course. We
Uh-huh.
reassessed her. We took her to the next 3 years. She's now 2.5 years through that. And
Uh-huh.
she's now demonstrating through verification audits back to ACI Global and myself that she is able to work with junior team members to bring them up so that they actually are, in some respects, moving faster than she is in her career. And
Yeah.
that's the hallmark of high achiever.
Yes. Wow, that's such an inspiring example, Ian. It's one thing to talk about systems and processes, but hearing how they really change lives and businesses, that's the magic right there, so to speak. And now, this is what I'm really more excited about to know. You've spent decades championing education and corporate sustainability. How does the RPL program fit into ACI Global's broader mission of accelerating continuous improvement and promoting sustainability through competence and capability?
It becomes a very important tool for ACI Global. And it also becomes a very important tool for every one of our candidates and and every one of our facilitators. And I guess to demonstrate this, you can remember back to the interview that we did with Yolanda in reference to food safety.
Yeah.
Now, again, she's a classic example where she has come forward again at the very start, questioning her ability. We've done the RPL process. We've now added into the RPL process the additional tools of the Hogan leadership profile, the Hogan 360-degree profile, and we've now added into that the professional development review software, where it's just a simple process of where every step along their journey, they step back and they look at a verification process of that capability or that skill, if you like. Okay, it's
Mm-hmm.
done, it's ticked off, and they just keep moving forward. Now, where it's exciting for ACI Global is we can actually go into a business, we can do a gap analysis on their leadership styles and their leadership team.
Mm-hmm.
We map it against the organisation's key performance targets, objectives, and their specific mission and vision and how they're actually performing. And
Mm-hmm.
you've heard me talk about, is that organisation gaining traction or
Yeah.
it's bogged down? And generally it comes back to how their people are performing. So
Mm-hmm.
you go through this process of doing recognition of prior learning, you look at a SWOT analysis for those people, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and we build from that point on to ensure that the people, their capabilities are increasing,
Mm-hmm.
their skills are increasing, their performance are increasing, and they actually, a really good business will find that people within that business will start to compete against each other. And I've seen it where it's a project management company. And again, the person I was just talking about before, she ended up with people competing with her within that business to pick up projects for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So not only are you increasing a person's confidence to step out and step faster, right? That improves the performance of the organisation, which is oh so critical in today's environment.
Right. It's incredible how everything ties back to corporate sustainability, Ian. I mean, in building sustainable careers and organizations, you've really woven a seamless connection between people, their capabilities, processes, and of course, growth. So, looking ahead, how do you see RPL shaping the future of professional development and organizational growth, especially when it comes to bridging the global skills gap?
Well, again, it will always remain one of our tools,
Mm-hmm.
but it's something that we will continue to improve. And with modern technology, we have the ability to integrate the ISO e-Quip quality software, the ISO e-Quip professional development review software. These two tools will come in, and the exciting thing for ACI Global is both those tools form part of a person's career development within an organisation.
Mm-hmm.
But once they finish their specific course, that's where it gets really exciting because that software becomes a tool for the organisation to continue to use. That enables the organisation to say, wow, okay, Joe has just finished a quality assurance course, just finished a lead auditor's course so they can audit our organisation with our management systems. We can now go to a certification body and have our systems certified by an independent third-party ISO certification provider. So then they get that extra tick of excellence for them, to become a higher achieving organisation, gaining more traction,
Mm-hmm.
becoming more environmentally sustainable, becoming more people sustainable, which adds to corporate social responsibility.
Yes. Well, clearly the way ACI Global is leading the charge, I'd say the future looks really bright for professionals and businesses alike. And this has been a very eye-opening and encouraging conversation with you, Ian, from breaking down what RPL is to showcasing its rigor, real-world benefits, and its alignment with ACI Global's mission. You've just painted a compelling picture of why this matters so much in today's world. So thanks to you, Ian, for your wealth of knowledge as usual and your incredible passion about empowering people and organizations.
Look, thanks for that, Miles. But also, it is worth mentioning, and very rarely I will mention a cost. Okay. But yes, there is a cost to doing recognition of prior learning
Of
correctly.
course.
But
Mm-hmm.
in an overall cost in reference to a person's career, it is very, very little, right?
Mm-hmm.
That cost is overrun by the benefits not only to the organisation, but above all to the people themselves. That's
Yeah.
where the benefit is, right?
Mhm.
And uh, and this is where I become extremely excited because if this is done correctly, we can see people passing through the ACI Global Academy, right?
Uh-huh.
Achieving their course results, becoming high achievers within their workplace, and
Mhm.
it gives them the ability to then say, well, okay, I can step away from this. Maybe I can run my own business. And
Mhm.
going back to Yolanda, that was the classic case with Yolanda,
Yeah.
where we took her on a course of career development
Mhm.
for her to become a high achiever. She's
Yeah.
now running one of the top organisations, compliance bodies in South Africa. She's now running this, right? And this is purely because someone, and I can be quite proud, Ian Erskine, Managing Director, I
Mhm.
took this young lady aside and said, you can do better. But
Yes.
let's do a recognition of prior learning. We did that. We've done all the assessments. She's done all the assessments and career and stepped from auditor to lead auditor, compliance manager, now a business owner, and her business is so good.
Yeah.
And like I say, if anyone's in South Africa and is looking for training, they
Mhm.
can go no further than Protect QA.
Yes. With Yolanda.
Yes, Yolanda. Yes.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Ian.
Thank you. And our next episode will be on auditing.
And I look forward to that.
Thank you.
Thank you. For our viewers who want to learn more about ACI Global's programs, even in South Africa, or how to get started with RPL, aciglobal.com.au is the website you have to check out. And thank you, dear audience, for tuning in. Remember, education isn't just about adding to what you know, it's about recognizing the value of what you already know and building from there. Until next time, this has been your host, Miles. Stay focused and inspired with X rays.